So without further ado, we'll proceed to begin the session today. As of today, we will be touching on a workshop on how Consensys grows Web3. And we have Clemens from Consensys to actually share with us today. Clement, please.
Hi, thanks for having me. Hi, my name is Clemens. I'm a solution architect. I've been with Consensys for almost 5 years now, and looking forward to presenting about all of our products. Just a quick Notion to review. We have a bunch of these resources on the Notion page, and I shared a link, and you can see that all of them are recorded. So if you go into bounties, each of them has the hackathon recordings and the different slides as needed. So feel free to look through that in case you've missed it. And with that, let's jump in. There's a lot of content here. I have 2 sessions this week. I'll be focused more on high-level, non-technical information. So today I'll be giving this high-level overview of Consensys, and then on Thursday I'll be giving a presentation on general Web3 trends. And here, the core Consensys products we want to discuss are Metamask, Metamask Institutional, Infura, Truffle, and the fuzzing developer experience, as well as Linea and the Consensys NFT platform. I'll reference some public demos. All the demos are in the slides linked. And then, we'll show some of the demos live as well. To frame the conversation, I always like to mention that we are builders focused on the tech crypto portion of the industry. So if you haven't already, please feel free to read Bill Hughes' CoinDesk piece on money crypto versus tech crypto. We're here for the ecosystem and not the casino. So what does Consensys build? There is a ongoing joke about this flywheel. It is enabling our users and developers to access this new internet of value, which means that users and developers are a tide that lifts all boats for the Ethereum and the EVM ecosystem. If you want to take a look at this in an operating system kind of stack, our tools first connect users and institutions to Web3. That's under Metamask. We just turned 7 years old. We also allow for developers to follow compliant software development lifecycle goals within our developer tools like Truffle, Ganache, fuzzing. And then from there, Infura connects 500,000 developers to 12 different blockchain networks using different APIs, WebSockets, webhooks. We've also launched 2 clients that supports the Ethereum ecosystem from the layer 1 perspective. We have Hyperledger Besu, part of our protocol team, still maintained. It's a Java execution client, which is open sourced. And then we also have Teku, which is the Consensys layer. And we're, I think, over or close to 1 million ETH staked using our Teku clients. Really exciting things. And Linea, we're going to be talking about that a little bit more later, but it has gone to mainnet for our partners, and we'll be going to mainnet alpha broader probably today or tomorrow at ETHCC. If we look at these base interactions, I think this is also a nice summary. On the left side is more Web 2. You have your websites that add on this connect wallet functionality, which renders the assets that are on these decentralized systems and on your user wallet login. To do that next, we use the APIs and things from Infura to help with connecting to those networks. And when we sign the transactions from either Metamask or Metamask Institutional, those are also sent through Infura to publish them directly to different validator pools across the networks. On the developer side, we help dApps get launched through these smart contract management tools that follow the SDLC, the software development lifecycle practices. So we do diligence. We work on keeping this open source. It's not really a revenue generator. We just want to make sure that dApps can deploy to the networks. Since my background is in finance, before joining the Web3 movement in around 2014, 2015. I was working at a financial institution where I started a blockchain working group there. And this resonated with me a lot when drawing this diagram for financial institutions. It's really thinking about the access that we provide them to greenfield innovation. And that's made possible because we're allowing these integration points. So it's not just a bank account. Maybe you're accepting paychecks from your job or you're paying off credit cards. This is actually giving additional opportunity to buy stable coins, NFTs, connect to DeFi and secondary markets to exchange into staking and different new networks as well. Okay, so let's get started. Let's start with our favorite wallet with a fox. So as a brief breakdown, the API platform team within MetaMask serves over 100 million yearly active users, right? There's 10,000 dApps globally. It powers 100 million transactions across all of these blockchain networks that we connect to. The team breakdown inside of Consensys actually looks like this. We have a MetaMask portfolio team. We have a mobile team, a browser extension team, as well as MMI and even pass-through of infura. And so for a quick demo, I have my MetaMask institutional account. I probably forgot to sign in, or maybe I did. Okay, so you can go visit this by going to portfolio.metamask.io for those who are interested. Sorry, I'm not really checking the chat, but I'll share that there. This should bring up a version of your view, and you can connect multiple accounts to multiple networks. This has been around for almost a year now. And the great thing is that you have all these services that we've been building out as APIs from within the MetaMask team. So you have the buy service across multiple countries. You have the swapping service from, I believe, 2021, bridging, which allows us to send funds across different networks, staking, and I'll go into each of these when I go into the specific teams. But the dashboard itself is to show you your tokens, your NFTs, the transactions associated with them. And you see this is my base account, so I have the base NFT as well. If you wanted to try out swaps, it's all available. There's demos here. I don't think I'm going to play the video, but all of them are linked. It's basically showing how to use the swap functionality. For those who don't know, this is an aggregator. It's a great strategy for a wallet. Effectively, MetaMask does not host any of the specific contracts where we're aggregating across Uniswap, 1inch, Paraswap, I believe 8 or 9 different providers. And we redirect the users to help them send the transactions directly to those decentralized exchanges. And it's generated revenue since, I believe, November 2020. We continue to build out new functionality for that. For bridging, again, the functionality came after swaps. It uses a similar strategy. We are aggregating across multiple bridge providers and vendors that are out there. It's easy to make swapping from one network token to another much faster. Another team that we have is called the Ramps team. And so the MetaMask Ramps team has been helping users buy crypto directly from the browser instead of leveraging other partner services. You can pay with your credit card through Stripe or Transact earlier, but there's no more options for kind of these global wallet holders. And within Ramps, we actually cover 95% of countries listed here. There's almost 14 alternative payment methods that you can use. We're also fully integrated into the portfolio experience that you can see, some one-click design streamlining that we've done. And staking, just this last part, we've launched this across our products. It's still in beta, but this is not just buying swapped staked ETH or ST-ETH from Lido. You're actually sending your tokens to either the Lido or Rocket Pool contracts themselves, and you earn your staked ETH back to your wallet address. We've built all the necessary capabilities here, working directly with the Lido and Rocket Pool team through our Consensys staking program. So it's not just a simple, let's just swap into other tokens that represent the exposure. It's really getting exposure directly and earning through the staked ETH. I believe there were a few presentations on this last week, but I'll just lightly cover. MetaMask for developers is through our Snaps and SDK. So how does Snaps work? Snaps let you extend the functionality of MetaMask by creating a trustless execution environment inside of MetaMask, and that's called Flask. So effectively, the MetaMask Flask extension is allow you to experiment and install all of these snaps. So you can embed your Web2 application and other requests to install the snap with those permissions. And then you can write your own APIs and methods within those snaps. So what can you do? The world is really your oyster. We allow for displaying any custom dialogues. We have alerts, prompts, confirmations, notifications, storage and manage of data, controlling non-EVM accounts and assets as well. You can derive entropy for unique use cases. You can populate pre-transaction window with custom transaction insights. You can schedule cron jobs. There's quite a bit of really interesting configuration that you can do with our SDK. Most of the interactions that we've seen in hackathons are bounties with snaps. And so the question is, how does it work? Note that we have rules within Google Chrome, Android, iOS that prevents us from outright explicitly launching something like a full-fledged app store inside of MetaMask. This always comes up. It's like, why don't you guys just own an app store? It's difficult to do. We've created the Flask model behind it, which is a separate extension, so we don't kind of mess with MetaMask by itself. But basically, your snap is an NPM package that you can install directly. And so when you're distributing it, basically you publish your snap to NPM with a bundler, and then you deploy the dApp and invite the users to install the snap on your site. And then the MetaMask wallet will prompt the users to install it. And after you install the snap, and for example, this is Filecoin's Fill Snap, or Starknet has its own snap as well, you can have access to what has been written, right? And other dApps and other parties can use the same snap tool that you've created. This was all presented by Christian Montoya, who's our head of product for snaps. And during that ETH Denver presentation, he also walked through this ETH India showcase of how account abstraction can be built into a snap. And there's a lot of interesting things here we're internalizing and hopefully releasing as features in the future. Feel free to, again, click through all these are links that show the demos. Great. If you want to learn more, there's a whole guide. There's a tiny URL for Snaps guide as well as a QR code. Zayad also did a pretty good job in covering all the details with examples, so feel free to watch that Bounties recording. Moving on to MetaMask Institutional. So the MMI, MetaMask Institutional, is MMI. It's a brand that ties with MetaMask. It's for organizations to manage their Web3 access and engagement through the necessary security and compliance for institutions, right? So what does it do? To put it simply, we built an SDK and API that plugs into MetaMask, into the custodians that we've worked with. And we need custodians because traditional institutions need to be compliant with their security processes. And that might need multi-sig approval transactions. Internally, you might need an account manager before you execute large trades. And all of these rules and workflows are coded and implemented by the institutions for general operational efficiency, to make sure there's accountability. And MMI provides that kind of integration. So there's a lot of great features that the API platform also passes through to MMI. In terms of the full capital allocation stack, I'm going to walk through all of these pieces. This is kind of what we've designed. First, there's pre-trade compliance. There's an important module built by our compliance team that connects an AML KYC compliance check to the AMM pools themselves, so automatic market making pools. The compliance tech keeps track of all of these wallet addresses that might have any risky behavior, and it will indicate the risk level when your trading desk is deciding to execute on a swap for that pool. MMI also includes MetaMask swaps. Obviously, all those APIs are available. I don't think we have any priority queues for this, but I do know that there's a less expensive percentage fee for higher volumes. And so that's part of our execution with those traders. And then also with staking services, there are available ones that are expanded across custodial providers as well. So here you can see Consensys Staking has a billion TVL. There's probably higher now. Notes the different certifications that are available. Blockdaemon, Kiln, all nodes all have different participants there. We also recently announced full connectivity with Fireblocks, so that's going to be extremely interesting moving forward. Really excited to implement all of that. I was going to do a demo, but I did not create my organization within my MMI, even though I have MMI here installed. There is a portfolio view of it. Effectively, it's pretty close to, this came right before the broader retail portfolio, but the only difference is here there's just different charts and whatnot, and there's different processes for onboarding. In terms of reporting, and this is also kind of more nuanced, we have transaction reporting, which is more comprehensive of different asset coverage. They can request different assets. There's known reporting to fund administrators, liquidity providers, other types of stakeholders. We have more detailed transaction reporting and classification. There's also portfolio snapshots. And I think a lot of these features are being tested with the institutions first before they get rolled out to kind of the broader retail sense. But you can imagine doing more taxes using these services for retail in the future. And the last page here is really about custody. We've integrated with 11 custodians, custody and self-custody providers out there to help organizations manage their key storage, facilitate any multi-sig transaction approvals, and really just optimize your trade flows. Great. The next one is Infura, which provides the API tools for connecting to Web3. We call it a Web3 gateway. And so to kick this off, I think it's important to think about the differences and problems that we have. Infura started back in 2015, kind of with the growth of the entire Ethereum ecosystem after the sale and after kind of this frontier portion. And so the main problem of the industry back then was really around the complexity of connecting to optimized nodes and running your own node. And so DevOps resources were super expensive. If you had a really good hire, you would rather than focus on development and strategy rather than keeping track of full nodes and doing that type of patches and software updates. And when it came to Infura, what was being built back then was really a set of easy API suites, as well as WebSockets and subscription services so that you can have zero maintenance on running these nodes. And so it wasn't for everybody, but it was for kind of the common developer. If you fast forward to what we had to grow in terms of the scale of MetaMask, we added a lot more features that could be useful for other Web3 devs. This includes expanding our access to new networks, right? Adding more features to bootstrap enterprise-grade deployments. And what I think Infura specializes in, and we don't really emphasize this enough, is burst throughput. We see a large amount of concurrent users for MetaMask demand, and therefore we've really optimized our Ethereum nodes, for example, to execute those swaps and execute those parallel transactions that we have to process. In 2023, there's different things that are happening. It's 8 years later, we have a lot of new problems, and what we've seen first is that there's a saturation of this Web3 access. A lot more Web2 people are building better tools connected to better scripts out there. And I think that with this saturation comes commodity pricing, which is always a race to the bottom in terms of customer acquisition. And there's much thinner profit margins for all of these at scale. The competitors basically all have the same plans. And if you do comparisons, it's pretty much all the same. We found that more EVM compatible networks have launched as well. So that really helps and hurts us in some ways. If you take a look at what we're headed towards to alleviate this, there's something called the Decentralized Infrastructure Network, or DIN. And we'll be talking more about that in future sessions and kind of releasing more about what that looks like. But effectively, we are decentralizing our backend set of nodes so that we can take advantage of global access to it, take advantage of paying different providers. And we have over 1,000 partners that are interested in becoming nodes and sharing that profit. The other thing here is the abundance of choice. It's a lot of different chains that are out there. I look at every chain like a new app store, right? You have a lot of phones, you have a lot of app stores, and you have a lot of customers that are on those areas. And it also fits to different types of networks, right? I have a photo, I want to post the photo to a different network based on the influencer and followers I have on those networks. And so I think that we will be a lot more careful in what we pick as network winners. Obviously, Linea is a big one. We'll still support the major ones with a lot of interest, but the new user problem we have is maintaining multiple dApp deployments on multiple networks. And we're hopefully going to address some of that. The last one we have is probably a little bit closer to the complexity that we see. It's more of, instead of kind of high level, let's just show a token graph of pricing and the transactions that token contract has done. It's more about a deeper integration with Web2 businesses. So those ETH RPC calls that we had before are too basic, and people really want a richer set of metadata and different experiences. So in terms of our strategy, we're looking forward to passing through some of the MetaMask APIs that we've already built within expansion APIs, and then implementing a lot of this a lot closer to MetaMask and kind of the user experience. Okay, let's chug along. We have the developer experience set of tools through Truffle. Truffle is open source. It's integrated closely with VS Code for those who haven't used it. As a quick overview, the set of Truffle tools exist on the NPM client in VS Code and in the Truffle dashboard. You can also sign transactions instead of using your local HD wallet library. So that's all available. Ganache is a part of Truffle, and it's used for creating local testnets. There is a local core UI as well as a separate client. You've probably seen this on a lot of online tutorials or academy courses that are out there for free. The client and UI versions can both clone a live instance of a testnet or mainnet, and it can be run locally with those pre-filled wallets. And for those who are new to Solidity, this is my summary. I've kind of done a lot of work building a lot of these tutorials, but I feel like this one summarizes best. First, you write your Solidity code. You inherit some set of functions. Maybe it's on OpenZeppelin. You have some references to open source kind of contracts that have already been reviewed. Then you fill out your migration file. This is the way that you deploy your contracts, right? You want to tell it where to go. Then you update your config file, which indicates the environments where you want to keep your private keys. Don't save those to anything crazy. Those are the environments that you do not upload to GitHub. And then you compile your Solidity files that creates these JSONs that describes the ABIs. Then you start your Ganache local testnet, maybe deploy locally first. If you're happy with that, you can deploy to a testnet directly by connected to Infura or other types of services. And then you'll likely use something like Truffle Dashboard, which I really like. And again, I mentioned this earlier. It's how you can sign with your MetaMask or kind of Gnosis safe wallets in order to deploy directly. And lastly, after a lot of testing, you might be ready to deploy to production, and you would need separate playbooks for different versions. You would have to come up with a key management process as well as ceremonies for generating those keys. And then you kind of get into code freeze and audit process before the deployment. And then you deploy your dApp and you monitor it for health. So launch playbook is super important to figure out how do you keep track of all of these different scripts for executing and pushing to production. One additional thought here. I don't know why Azul kind of moved over, but that's okay. Developers and startups go through a lot of life cycles themselves. They kind of get better at DevOps and SecOps. And at first, you might be the single developer on the left side. So you're organizing your code. You're kind of in this hackathon. You've launched from the hackathon. You probably spend a lot of time writing test cases. Eventually, you might audit your code, pen test your servers, and do all those things. And I think that in the middle, you start thinking about your deployment process. Maybe there's security setups, different contract upgrades that you need to include, as well as launching tokens and NFTs that might be associated with your token launch. And then after launching, you have new features. And so this is, again, similar to what I mentioned before. It's environment separation. There's testing before you make any breaking updates or patches, and your teams are probably optimizing your code. So new versions of contracts that cost less to run. And so this kind of hopefully describes that overall process within coding. And I'll have in my next session next week, I will be talking about Hackathon after the hackathon. Like, how do you create a startup? What tools can you leverage? Okay, fuzzing as a service. Consensys has a lot of tools, if you didn't know. A demo of fuzzing as a service is available on YouTube. Again, linked. Feel free to watch that. It's about a 10-minute video of me walking through how to get fuzzing started and kind of a brief overview. Because we want to have safer smart contracts published on Ethereum and any EVM compatible chain, really the security analysis tools are combined with this hands-on review by expert auditors. And as a general process, we really start with writing your Solidity code with Scribble. And so Scribble is a separate language that we use for indicating the expected outcomes. And it's easier than writing specific test scripts. So from there, your fuzzing is a service client, and you feed the smart contracts that you want from fuzzing. You can do 10 minutes or hours at a time. And the fuzzing tool basically uses entropy to feed in the randomized and purposeful edge cases into your coding functions. And so the fuzzing campaigns tell you where you might have vulnerabilities. You can even check those particular functions back into ChatGPT or something else to work on what the outcome and kind of resolutions would be, or you can work with our auditing team and their diligence side for fully manual audits as well. How do we compare to different competitors? We are the only full SaaS tool out there with the goal of getting more of these processes embedded into quality assurance or other types of enterprise testing. And so that is our focus. Other tools require you to do a lot of this hosting and configuration yourself instead of just sending the compiled code to our optimized servers. Another common question is GPT-4 going to replace all audits and fuzzing altogether? We've actually found that GPT-4 reviewing Solidity code is doing a lot of lookups of common vulnerabilities that's well documented. This means that the tool is more of a competitor to MythX, which is kind of our comparison to common bugs in our smart contract vulnerabilities database. And so there is definitely some type of threat here in general because there's downward pressure in pricing. And there might be lower demands for manual audits if people are trying to take shortcuts. But we do recommend playing it safe. I mean, if you are creating funds from this or will be hosting funds from it, it's good to go through the regular steps. And I think that the next steps could be, creating some type of plugin within GPT-4 or kind of ChatGPT plugins. That could be possible. But again, we're working pretty closely with this and kind of other Ethereum engineers to think about Solidity in a different way, right? Right now, I think Python is seeing a big, growth and a lot of the ChatGPT-4 plugins. The latest one with Code Interpreter, I think, is really fascinating. They are using Python as an execution environment inside of your thread of talking with this LLM. And I think that's coming up with a lot of really interesting things. It's making development much easier. If you ever wanted a summary of talking points, here they are. Feel free to read through them. We are thinking more about how to get the most out of fuzzing and more people involved. Links again to documentation all throughout this presentation. Okay, last two products we have here. Linea is our layer 2 zkevm. I won't be able to cover this in the same detail, but Emily Lin, who heads kind of developer relationships across Linea, has a bunch of great, talking points through what a rollup is and kind of all of these things. I'm just going to give a quick highlight under 10 minutes, under 5 minutes. Let's see how it goes. First, Linea is a layer 2 zero knowledge rollup, which means we have a separate blockchain that we're creating that optimizes on increasing transaction speed and throughput, right? While fully or partially deriving its security from layer 1. And so this is the hierarchical layer of how do you scale instead of scaling by sharding, which is kind of, if you think about processing, early days of a computer, you can either scale by creating a very purposeful computer for certain types of transactions, or you can do multi-threading where you're taking all the transactions and kind of separating them out. This is the first one, which is more hierarchical scaling. And when you do that, what we want to maintain is data availability that's posting into the transaction data of Ethereum layer 1. Rollups are probably the most widely accepted implementation of layer 2s, and there's different types of rollups that we can talk about. So where are we and what are we trying to get towards? First, we have Ethereum, which has Solidity, you have bytecode, you have the EVM itself. And kind of the early days of this, and people have been building rollups in the past, effectively, you want to build towards the highest EVM equivalence. If you split the architecture into kind of runtime, bytecode, languages, you see in blue here, we want to have as much matching. And the early days of building, you alter the language so that you can kind of build more time deterministic or other types of optimizations. As you add more complexities, it's pretty tough to do, but these companies have been a while for years and they have been building towards this. You can compile bytecode to new instruction sets. And I would say that even with more recently, like Polygon, zkevm, we still have bytecode that becomes micro opcodes before they're processed by their zk executor. In Linea and Scroll, which is where we're sitting, we have built towards this type 2 compatibility, which is to use the same language, use the same bytecode, write your own converters on the runtime level instead of kind of reinventing the wheel on the bytecode side. Where are we today? Linea is a product of 5 years of research and development at Consensys. It's currently on the way of becoming this type 2 zkevm. It's powered by an award-winning prover. It proves industry-leading speeds. We have 48 million transactions over the past 3 months since we launched on the Goerli testnet, 5.5 unique wallet addresses, 2.5 million deployed contracts, and today or soon within ETHCC, we're launching to mainnet. Right now, it's just launched to partners. They're ironing out their dApp deployments, but during this week, we will be rolling out to mainnet for all users. I think the reason why builders are excited is because of the zero-knowledge technology altogether, the ease of deployment that we have and development that we have, and then our integration with Metamask. So in terms of developer tools, we are launching with 100+ partners on the Linea ecosystem. Our Truffle team also supports the smart contract deployment to a new chain. Besu is being optimized for a lot of these network use cases, and we'll see closer integration with Besu on the Java side. And Infura provides the developer node services for faster deployment. And out of the gate, we have kind of an unfair advantage. We are working with the Metamask team sitting very close to us. We are curating these Web3 features and user experiences for those 100 million annual users deploying directly to Linea, which results in and reduces our kind of frictions in onboarding. If you want to learn more about this and how to develop, there was a lot of voyages that were quests that have been completed that has ended, and you can still obviously develop into mainnet and the testnet will stick around. But there's a video here by Emily, which shows you how you can deploy the contract with Truffle and other types of providers. Get started building. Declan is our head of product for Linea, and that is his box view. Very cool. Okay, last but not least, we have the Consensys NFT platform. It was previously the Trium team. And there's not a lot that I can talk about this in terms of where we're headed towards, but in general, we still recognize the importance of NFTs within Consensys. We think that it's building communities, it's connecting with a lot of Web3 users as a mental map. And a lot of these is making the experience more user-friendly and scalable from a minting perspective. And so this Consensys NFT team has done quite a bit for the L1 ecosystem, for example. We did timed open editions. as well as an incredible technical team that's helped with launching the campaigns for both the merge and Chapella upgrades. There are, NFTs that were launched, and I think that it's done a pretty great job. You can't really see the price isn't really that high, but I think we reached out to a lot of owners, and we've launched the first NFT on the first block of the post-merge proof of stake block. I don't know how we did it, but we have a pretty smart team. There's other campaigns that we did as well. The Consensys NFT platform team supported global launches of NFTs with POAPs, as well as commemorative NFTs for events. And there's actually internally, we work with them closely for any of the other events that we host. We probably have one at ETHCC right now. The reason we have this separate team is because it's focused on enterprise engagements. We've been working with the Aura team for quite some time. It's the Louis Vuitton brand of its 18 consortium members, and they do high quality premium for trusts is kind of a traditional retail player. We haven't opened up any secondary trading for it. It's really connected to the brand itself. We also recently launched an Eventbrite type of rival. It's every ticket being an NFT twin, and we can innovate some more post-mint attendee engagement. So really a lot that there is being focused on. And CNFT team is also not just looking at enterprise engagements, but rolling out more public network products as well. So looking forward to that. I'm going to check the chat real quick. I think that's it for my slides. I'm going to do a quick thank you. You can find me on the socials on I'm C Lemons. Let's see what else is in the chat. Okay. Christian is there to answer questions about MetaMask snaps. There's a new UI. Thank you, Christian. Third Web is also very good. Third Web is one of our customers that uses Infura on the back end as well, and I love their setup. I think that they can mint directly from contracts really nicely. You're welcome. I have ended early, which is rare for me. I usually go over. Maybe I should have played some of those videos. Thank you. Any questions? I can hang around. Feel free to ask them in the chat. This will be recorded and posted. Christian is your person for any snaps questions. Tom, you asked some tips. Some tips for what? Living a fulfilling life. Keep expectations low. And your life will be. Oh yeah, there's a. If you say any bad words, the chat will block those words. Oh, tips for using AI. Oh, I have a whole separate presentation I've done within Consensys on different things using AI. Maybe I'll include it into the next session. I don't want to overlap. But AI usage is open. People are using any resource they have on the internet, which the only restriction is you have to open source your code. I use AI all the time for writing, for brainstorming, for image generation, for, making better slides, for making things faster, rewriting things, paraphrasing. I love Code Interpreter. It really is pretty incredible for image to video editing. There's so much to cover. I literally have, hundreds of slides covering this. And maybe I'll include it into the next one. But within Consensys, we have an applied AI decentralized group where we just talk about where we can apply this so that it's a AI intern or kind of helpfulness. Inside of the hackathon, you can use it anywhere. Within Consensys, we had a cypherpunk hackathon. We do it yearly. I believe this is our third year that we completed it, and there was a whole section just on who used AI the most. AI and snaps. Just a quick, because I think this is relevant. This is a nice summary of where I've seen Web3 companies use AI and how they've used it for basically education and onboarding. So retail facing features, this is what your Web3 company is building out. So first, it's an onboarding guide to chat with your docs. We've seen this for a lot of Git books. You can add in some plugins. In terms of education, there's an AI tutor. I like using Conmigo. It's $9 a month or $99 a year, and it's kind of customizing and testing you along the way for learning new topics. For first drafts, you have coding assistants like GitHub Copilot. For auditing, debugging, and Q&A, you can have it write your test cases on your behalf. In terms of different types of exposure or distribution, I think GPT plugins is a good way to get those APIs exposed. We've seen this with Solana as well as with Avalanche and a few other networks that are doing direct partnerships. Definitely a content explosion. And what we're looking forward to is thinking about what does GPT SEO look like? So search engine optimization that doesn't use advertising, but at the same time has recommendations from an intelligent AI agent in some ways. For internal usage, we have training employees and different types of tools. For DAOs, I think onboarding and onboarding material is important, creating videos for it, but also just more engaging and walking through. And kind of all of this is to get towards product feature release velocity and hopefully integration into your processes for doing an automatic check of your commits and then figuring out if you can run your test cases automatically in continuous integration, continuous deployment. And then maybe there's a new marketplace involved internally. And I think the lowest lift is this content creation velocity. So a lot of marketing teams are adopting first, but I think product teams are looking at a lot of different areas as well. And I have examples of this. Crypto.com came out with Amy, Binance has Sensei, Kappa.ai is a bunch of really cool tools. Avalanche, Moonbeam, Algorand both use that. DeFi Llama has a plugin right now for ChatGPT. And the idea is to connect your resources, train on your own data, deploy a chatbot, reduce your CSM support. I think there's a lot there. One more thing I wanted to mention. This is probably the most common AI bot marketing talking points. I think people hear this a lot, but I think it's a good summary and where people think that this is headed towards, which is train the ChatGPT on your own data itself. So are there enterprise versions of this? What does that look like? I personally think that ChatGPT's next set of features will likely be related to enterprise. Right now, the code interpreter plugin allows you to upload files so that you can read them, review them. I mean, every new feature is pretty much killing a lot of the startups that are out there that created their own, 2 or 3 person teams and sites that are out there. I think deploying to public is very important. So Gitbooks integration, Discord chatbot integration, deploying a ChatGPT plugin. And then internally, you have private data sources, leveling up your team, and training a long copilot that knows your product, that you can ask it questions. There's probably optimizations with project management. So all the videos from Zoom, I believe Zoom has its own AI feature that's being released, where it's not just like Firefly is note taking, but off of the recordings, it'll do live transcripts, it'll do summaries, and it'll do action points off of those meetings. So I think that there's a lot that impacts your day-to-day operations and hopefully reduces, again, the overhead of middle management just sharing updates from different development teams. A lot of that could be summarized and help your company grow. But yes, that's my quick kind of 5 minutes on AI.
Okay. Thanks, Clemens.
Thanks, Clemens.
him to with us on how Consensys actually work together in the Web3 space as well. Um, after this session in itself, Clemens will be around for a bit. So if you have any questions, please walk up to him, and you can just unmute yourself to have conversation with him below the stage. And Clemens will be more than happy to just kind of answer any questions as well. In the meantime, if you have any questions with regards to the hackathon itself, non-technical, hopefully, you can approach any of the AngelHack staff, which is myself, Justin, or another person who is actually in the space will be able to take on any questions in itself. So once again, thank you all for taking time to participate at the second week of the live session for Not Another Virtual Hackathon itself. All the best for all the hackers, and see you on Thursday for another round of live workshops as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, feel free to walk up to me. Cheers.